Howdy, I'm WolfX2, and this is Remnant from the Ashes in 30 minutes or less. We'll be playing on hard difficulty, which is recommended for new players. While this game is fun with up to 3-person co-op, we will be playing solo. Also, don't worry, this game is still pretty fun to play already knowing the story. This is a bit of a long one, so let's not waste any more time. We begin the game washed ashore after our ship sunk due to the storms surrounding the atoll. We are soon attacked by the Root, a foreign species that has invaded Earth. We learn how to attack, dodge, and navigate the map. And we also learn that I'm not the best at this game, as I quickly die during the tutorial. We were rescued by Commander Ford, who is the leader of Ward 13, one of the last bastions of humanity on Earth. We quickly start breaking boxes like it's Zelda and are rewarded with some scrap, the primary currency of this game. We also find a journal written by Commander Ford's grandmother, Evelyn Cedar. Story takes a bit of a backseat in this game and is generally found in questioning people while exploring or reading journals. We learn that Ward 16 was invaded by the Root, and that Evelyn was one of the 7 sole survivors of the attack. They retreated to Ward 13, which had also been attacked, and found few still alive. The Root had been looking for special people known as Dreamers at Ward 13, and left once they'd all been killed. Captain Andrew Ford, henceforth known as the Founder, took over once the Root had abandoned their attack. The rest of the world didn't handle attacks from the Root very well, though. Armies were overrun, and France even attempted nuking their own land. Nothing could stop them. It turns out that Evelyn was able to sense the Root in her dreams. She could hear and even smell the Root as herself, could feel their joy and rage. The Ward would use her senses to help with their strategies and defend against the Root. Evelyn eventually worked up the courage to ask the Founder out, and they fell in love and became married. Whew, that was a lot of backstory. Let's get to some gameplay. We explore the Ward and find a merchant area and some stairs leading deeper into the bowels of the Ward. On the first level down, we find the reactor, which needs to be turned back on. We're warned that there are enemies nearby and that we should arm ourselves before continuing. We're presented with 3 choices of starting classes, or archetypes as the game calls them: the Hunter, the Ex-Cultist, and the Scrapper. We choose the Ex-Cultist because it has a healing skill, which just sounds OP in this style of game. Also, it's not a huge deal which class you choose, since you're able to buy the other gear and skills from different merchants in the game. We start the reactor and finally get to see some combat. We wipe out the Root attack and head back to Commander Ford to inform her. On the way back, we meet Reggie, one of the merchants, who gives us a Dragonheart relic. These are limited use healing items, similar to Estus flasks in Dark Souls. We start with 3, but we'll be able to upgrade the number of charges later. We're sent to learn more about how to upgrade and purchase new equipment and unlock new skills. We start with Riggs, the armorer, who gives us our first armor. We're able to pay him iron and scrap, which can be found by defeating enemies or found whenever exploring the map. We then talk to McCabe, who sells weapon mods, which can be attached to equipped weapons and allows us to cast spells. To cast these spells, we must first build up the charge meter at the lower right-hand corner of the screen by dealing damage to enemies with that weapon. We head back to Commander Ford and she gives us the key which unlocks the terminal downstairs. We head down and access the terminal and activate the World Stone. This is how we travel back and forth between the worlds and Ward 13. We head over to the World Stone and select to travel to the Founder's hideout on Earth. We arrive at the Founder's hideout and quickly find a hidden room behind a bookshelf that we just happened to break. We find a new set of armor and slap it right on. We find another journal, this one written by the Founder, that informs us that he was in search of the Root Mother, which could be found in the old church past the subway. We begin exploring the city and find plenty of scrap, iron, and enemies. The game starts you out with enemies that aren't too hard, but still take quite a bit of work to take down. While exploring, we also find tomes of knowledge, which provide us with trait points. Oh yeah, traits. These are passive skills which provide us with small bonuses to your character and can be leveled up to improve the benefits. You can get trait points from leveling up your character through killing enemies and completing quests, or by finding tomes around the map. We continue exploring the map and soon experience our first death, and this wasn't even from a boss. We respawn at the checkpoint and all the enemies in the world have respawned. Time to fight our way back through again. We then find our first mini-boss. These are quite difficult and are nothing to play around with. We enter our first dungeon, the Hidden Grotto, and find a hunter inside who gives us a key to his hideout. We fight our way through multiple new mini-bosses which put up quite a fight, and then experience another death. This will be a pattern in this video. We return to Ward 13 to upgrade our gear with the resources we've found, in hopes that we will die less. We scrounge around to avoid the traps until we're able to find the door the key goes to and happily receive a new gun. We find a new area with another checkpoint and proceed to die a couple more times before finding our first ring. Jewelry is very powerful in this game and can be bought from merchants or found while exploring. We only have 2 ring slots and 1 necklace slot, so we have to be choosy and build towards a specific goal. Soon we find the entrance to our first boss. These boss entrances look oddly familiar, huh? We go through the door and beat the boss on our first try. Just kidding, I died 15 times with this boss because I wasn't patient enough. The game really takes some time to get used to, but we'll see gains as we progress in the story. Also, could you tell how happy I was when I defeated this boss? I fucking did it! Woo! That's how you know you're playing on the correct difficulty in one of these games, I feel. We play these kind of games to feel the sense of reward once we finally bested the challenge that feels like it can't be done. I now realize that we haven't discussed the dog that's been following me around and murdering most of the things it sees. This is a weapon mod we received due to one of the DLCs for the game, and yes, I am going to use it because I'm bad and I need the help. We scavenge around the town, fighting everything we can find and wiping out mini bosses without issue. We also find one of my favorite rings in the game, the Sage Stone, which provides us with 30% XP boost. We'll be keeping this on as long as the game allows us. We find the entrance to the subway and head back to Ward 13 for upgrades before moving on. We return and quickly die because apparently they can catch fire now. Good to know. We push forward, barely surviving multiple very close fights before luckily arriving at another checkpoint to replenish our dragon hearts. We make it out of the subway and arrive at the Church of the Harbinger, where the Root Mother resides. We push through the boss barrier and speak to the Root Mother, who offers us information on the root if we rescue her from this prison. Those of you who were paying attention might have caught on that this is actually Evelyn, Commander Ford's grandmother, who was having the dreams of the root. It takes a few tries, but we're able to defeat the waves of enemies and save the Root Mother and help her return to Ward 13. We'll be back to talk to her later. We push on to Westcourt and find new enemy types for us to kill. We're also receiving forged iron as well as base iron now. When upgrading guns and armor, we have to provide different rarities of iron depending on the upgrade level. We head back to the ward to upgrade our gear as well as check on the shops. We buy the explosive shot weapon mod and head over to talk to the Root Mother. She tells us that in order to find the founder, we must first find the entrance to the labyrinth. The labyrinth is the connection between all other worlds. We're also able to trade her simulacrum, a very rare material, and luminite crystals, which are dropped by mini-boss enemies, to upgrade our max number of Dragonheart charges we have. That puts us at 4 charges. We head back and find the Ash Yard, which contains Singe, the boss that prevents us from reaching the labyrinth. We try fighting the boss a few times, but are not getting anywhere near killing it. I feel that we need to level up and upgrade our gear more before we can move on with the main story. This is where Adventure Mode comes in. Adventure Mode is a version of the game separate from the campaign that can be re-rolled in order to get materials and find new bosses. This is important as the campaign only allows us to fight so many of the available bosses that are available for the world. We ran through 2 Adventure Mode maps and were geared up to fight Singe again. We'd also come across one of my favorite guns in the game, the Assault Rifle. Before returning to fight Singe, we decided to finish exploring the underbelly of Ward 13. We find a lab that we're now able to open the door to, which is filled with lots of lore and another locked door. It turns out that this is one of the places where a few of the Dreamers had been connected. There was Gabriel, Casa, and Clementine. Gabriel was connected to a world with a species referred to as the Fuzzies. He ended up dying after the Fuzzies turned on their world guardian for some unknown reason. Clementine was the second Dreamer connected, and she was joined to a frozen world with entities called Polas. The room had to be kept cold to resemble that of the Polas world, otherwise her vitals would go awry. Unfortunately, a janitor that was cleaning the room turned the temperature up and they were both teleported to somewhere else, presumably the Polas world. They later connected Casa to Gabriel's world and found out that it had been taken over by the Root, with very little of the Fuzzies still surviving. When the Root attacked Earth, they attacked Ward 13 looking for Casa, the last remaining Dreamer. The scientists locked themselves away in the lab room and tried what they could to wake Casa, believing that she was the gate connecting the Root to this world. They were unable to wake her and Casa ended up dying. They believed that Harsgard, a researcher in another ward, had a Dreamer in a similar state, and that they needed to wake up that Dreamer as well to stop the Root invasion. We went down to the last level, the research floor, and found some interesting equipment, but we were unable to access any of it. We found the key to the locked room on the floor above, which we opened and found a submachine gun sitting on the floor. Nice! We headed back to face Singe again, and with our newly upgraded weapons and armor, we were able to take him down easily, only dying 2 more times in the process. With the dragon protecting the tower dead, we were able to enter and speak to the Keeper. They explained more about the World Guardians and how they were being killed off by a beast called the Devourer. The Keeper explains that they are the only thing keeping the Devourer away and preventing the unending rot from progressing any further. They then teleport us to the Labyrinth, the connection between all worlds. We explore the Labyrinth, finding 2 doors that were unable to open without some sort of a key, and then find the remains of one of the Founders' camps. We find another door in the Labyrinth and we're able to pass through to Rom. Rom is a desert planet that was able to defeat the Root by nuking their entire world. While this did work, it left their planet irradiated and those left remaining mutants. We're tasked with finding the Undying King, who is the key to the other portals in the Labyrinth. We start to explore the area and are having an extra tough time dealing with the mini-bosses of this area. We fight our way through and into a dungeon. In the future, just assume we go back to the ward and upgrade our gear before every boss. We proceed to the boss and are able to pass it in 7 tries. We die a few times traveling through the next couple of areas before approaching our next boss, or set of bosses this time. We battle the bosses 3 times before changing up our strategy to pure summoning. We destroy the bosses with ease this time and move on. The next area of the map has a puzzle that we failed too many times to count, and the puzzle summons 2 to 3 tough enemies with every failure. We finally solve the puzzle and go underground to receive the armor we will be using for the rest of the game. Void Skull. The next boss would not work with our summoning build. This is when we found the power of Hot Shot. We'll be using this when killing nearly every boss in the future as it provides a great damage boost. We beat the boss on our next try and travel back to the merchant of the planet, who has a broken ancient construct by his house. We insert the ancient core that we received fighting the dog boss from earlier, and he comes to life. We kill him after a few attempts and head back to Ward 13 to see that he gave us a turret weapon mod that could be useful in the future as our only ranged summon. We open the Black Sun Gate, which was preventing us from getting to the Undying King. Upon entering, he exits his pool and offers us the key to the labyrinth doors if we provide him with the World Guardian's Heart of Corsus. He provides us with a portal there and we get on with it. Corsus was a new world for the Founder that the Dreamer Network had never connected to. The inhabitants of Corsus had abandoned their advanced technology for some unknown reason. We make it to the local butcher's house and surprisingly beat this boss on our first try. Am I just getting that much better at this game?
God, is he gonna stop?
I then die to a mini-boss in the next area and get put back in my place. We find a note while searching the next area, and it mentions how the locals had all been consumed by the local cult called the Iskal. We soon meet the one who calls herself the Queen of the Iskal. It turns out she's also looking for the Heart of the World Guardian. We tell her we'll get it for her and move on our way. We're about to make one of these people pretty unhappy. Moving along, we find a boss that gives us a corrosive debuff for standing in its clouds. We take them down in 7 tries and are almost done with this world. We finish exploring the map and have one more dungeon to enter, the Ancient Span. Now it's finally time to battle the World Guardian. We die to the Moth and its successor 7 times before taking them both down and receiving the Guardian's Heart. We choose to head back to the Undying King to give him the Guardian's Heart instead of the crazy cult queen. The Undying King takes the heart and intends to use it to return Rom back to its former glory. He gives us the key and a new scythe melee weapon, and it's time to head back to the labyrinth. We open both the closed doors and find that one leads to Corsus and the other to a new world, Geisha. We step through the portal to the new world and are met with a beautiful forest biome. Geisha is populated by a species called the Pan. They are an oppressed species that is ruled by immortals. The founder helped the Pan to start a revolution against these mortals and is praised by their people. We explore the forest and find a battle between the Pan and the immortal slaves. We fight our way through the swarm of mini-bosses and meet Nevun, the leader of the resistance. Nevun mentions how the founder is now imprisoned and will be tough to get to. We return to exploring Geisha and find ourselves in another dungeon, fighting the Warden. We knock his bell off in the first attempt and move on with our prizes in hand. We find another boss, the Stormcaller, which we easily beat and move on. Now for the harder boss. We move on to find the Totem Father, who took many attempts to beat. This monkey puts down totems that spawn 3 enemies each, and it took me multiple attempts before realizing that you could destroy them, and that I didn't have to fight swarms of ads. We headed back to Ward 13 for upgrades and realized that I hadn't upgraded our Dragon Heart since the first time, and was able to upgrade it 3 times. We fought the boss 10 times total before being able to move on, and this is one of the most fun bosses I've fought since the first one for sure. Just past this boss was the prison that Ford was being held in. We entered the prison and made our way down to Ford, who was oddly the only living thing left in the prison. He tells us how Ward 17 is the source of the root, and how Harsgard, one of the other researchers, had connected a dreamer directly to the root's world. He informs us that there is a mirror in the basement level of Ward 13 that will allow us to travel directly to Ward 17, and gives us the key to activate it. Surprisingly, he decides to stay in the cell instead of returning to Ward 13 to be with his granddaughter and the people he once saved. We return to Ward 13 and upgrade our gear as much as possible before passing through the mirror to Ward 17. After activating the mirror and walking through the portal, we are met with a dreamer, who the root has been keeping alive and connected to their world. We attempt to disconnect them from the machine and are met with the final boss of the game, the Nightmare. We beat the first phase of this boss on our second try and feel pretty good about how easy this boss has been so far. Then the boss uses its first attack on the second phase and we're killed over and over again just to the first attack. It turns out our armor is too heavy and not allowing us to move fast enough to dodge the attack. This means we're going to have to grind adventure mode to upgrade another set of armor before being able to return to this boss fight. We head back to Ward 13 and open up an adventure mode on courses and battle our way through the world and eventually arrive at a very nice dungeon that had many mini bosses we could kill for plenty of loot. We re-rolled this dungeon for about an hour before heading back to Ward 13 to upgrade the Hunter armor set. Time to head back to Ward 17. With our new armor equipped, we were easily able to dodge the boss's attacks and were able to beat the final boss in another 7 attempts. I have to mention that although this boss was initially challenging for me, the second phase of this boss was the most boring battle in the entire game. We paddle our way off the atoll and the credits roll. After the credits, we wake up in Ward 13 to... nothing changed? We talk to Ford and the others around the ward and they talk as though the root is still attacking Earth. This left me feeling quite disappointed. In review, I find the pacing of this game to be rather boring. Our gear fell behind areas multiple times and having to roll adventure mode worlds just to proceed was not very fun. I looked online to see if this was just me, but it appears to be a common issue for people in this game, and adventure mode is just expected. I like the variety of weapons and armor we receive throughout the game, but without going into adventure mode many more times, we're stuck using the same equipment to prevent further grinds. The limited bosses you are able to fight on each world without rolling a new adventure mode world would somewhat add to the replayability of this game, but since you have to re-roll adventure modes just to keep up with the difficulty in new areas, it's just disappointing that they didn't make the campaign world larger in order to contain all the bosses. I also never got that overwhelming feeling from beating a boss like I did after dying to that first boss 16 times. After that, none of them had the same difficulty. The Monkey Man boss on Geisha was close with many fun mechanics, but 2 out of however many bosses being that enjoyable just wasn't enough. The story being held behind notes you'd find around the map also felt very cheap. I feel like the creators wanted to add cinematics that would explain the story more, but ran out of money while they were making the game and had to make cuts. You could easily play through the entire game without reading these notes, and while the bosses fighting would still be fun, you wouldn't have a clue what their purpose was. After leaving Earth, the residents of Ward 13 never get new dialogue and just repeat the same things over and over again. It was very disappointing that they do not follow the story of the game at all. Overall, I'd give this game a 2 out of 5. Thanks for watching, and I'm glad if you've made it this far into the video. This is my first video in this series, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know if there's any changes you'd like to see in the future episode. Have a wonderful day.